Hey guys, Kev here, and I have a full review to do for you. So this is the ZT0470 updated version with Copper Inlay, and you have S110V on the steel. And yes, I believe the last video I did was unboxing this, so I've only had this for 2 days, I think, but I did own one of these before, and I can pretty much suss a knife out real quick these days. I have cut with it, I have carried it, so I can go ahead and review it by my own standards. I am determining that I can review this knife. Now listen, this was loaned into me by the good people over at Blade Ops. So Blade Ops has an affiliate program now, and I guess they're hitting up some YouTubers to see if people wanted to sign up, and I said sure. Basically, there's a link down in the description below. If you follow that link, it helps the channel. That is essentially how it works. That's it. There's no extra trickery. Sadly, there's no discount for you guys. Of course, I will continue to work on that. Oh, look at that. What is that? Some white stuff on there. I don't know what that is. It was in my back pocket, so clean that off. Ugh. There was nothing else in my pocket, so I don't know what that would be. I'd try some alcohol. Sorry, I'm in really close quarters right now. I'm trying to get my lighting like a little bit better, but it's really in my face. So hold on. Let me raise that up a little bit. There we go. Looks like I got most of it off here. Again, this is a loaner from Blade Ops, so it's not my knife, which obviously I don't want to damage the knife or anything, but I have to carry it to review it. So, but it was in a pocket with nothing else, so I don't know what that was anyway. Doesn't matter. But this was shiny copper, and now it's patinaing, so it doesn't really matter. This knife is going to be a used knife no matter how they slice it. But anyway, there's a link down below, and if you use that, it helps the channel out. Essentially, I think I get like 5%, so it's not a big deal or anything, but they were willing to send me some knives to check out, and that always helps, so I don't have to spend my money, which I do constantly to get knives in for review. So I think it's a good trade-off. So shout out to the people at Blade Ops. They also sent along some swag, a hat, and some patches and stuff. I have the hat up in my giveaway bin, so you guys will be getting that through the live streams. So all in all, I think it's a good deal, and I get to check out cool knives. And honestly, on the first go, they sent me, I asked for, but they sent me 2 really cool American-made knives. So it's also a little bit different for me because a lot of the knives I review come from overseas, or they're made overseas, whether the designer is here or not. And it's kind of cool and refreshing to have some American-made stuff that I actually like. This knife right here, I would probably buy this knife. So it's not just stuff I'm reviewing, it's also stuff I'm interested in. Now, the other one, I don't think I'd buy it just because it's not like my style, but it's a good knife. And that one will be the next video probably. So anyway, this is the ZT0470, and this is a model that came out years ago. This is a Dmitry Sinkovich design, and this is a knife that I really wanted when I first got into knives. The first knife I bought that was like fancy-ish was the ZT0450 CF, and that's a Sinkovich design as well. And I wanted this one, but the 0450 it was a lot cheaper by over $100, I think. This has a little bit of stick or something, so I'm just trying to figure out. It might just be some oil on the lock bar. So I bought the 0450 instead, which is a smaller knife, thinner knife. But I always liked this design, and it had a marble carbon fiber inlay and 20 CV blade, the normal version of this knife. And I did eventually get one, but it had a QC issue. And as far as I remember, it had tooling only on one side. So you couldn't get the pivot out, and it had a spinning pivot. It was quite annoying. and I ended up having to return it because I couldn't get the pivot out. And it was early on, before I started the channel, early on in my collecting, and White Mountain Knives was super kind enough to take that back as a return, because ZT actually had their warranty service closed at the time because of COVID. So that dates my collecting a little bit there. There you go. Yeah, that was my experience with it. I liked it, but the detent was soft. It was so easy to fail. This one, they dialed a lot better. Now, I do prefer the marbled carbon fiber inlay on that one versus this copper. I do like the copper, and honestly, this version has grown on me a lot since getting it. But I do like carbon fiber over these kind of stinky metals. They're just not my bag. But I like how it goes with this PVD handle and blade. I think it looks really snazzy. And then you have this S110V, which is very, very super steel. It holds an edge forever. Now, it's going to be a little more chippy, I believe, than others. And I don't know how stain resistant it is, but they took care of that with this PVD coating. So basically what you're left with is a steel that's not the strongest or the toughest, but is going to last in terms of edge retention for a long time. And that's kind of what you're looking for in a knife like the 0470, right? I mean, this isn't meant to be a work knife. This is meant to be an EDC knife, an everyday user to cut cardboard, cut paper, open packages, and stuff like that. And I think this steel makes perfect sense for that. So I think that's a great option. So anyway, that's a quick overview for you. The price is $340 at Blade Ops. Now, before you go screaming, because, you know, I kind of was like, oh my God, $340. Like, I think in my unboxing, I said, if this is like $250, you know, to $300, then that would be awesome. And, you know, but if you think about it, and that's what I did. I stepped back and I was like, okay, Kev, who makes knives in the U.S., right? And you're talking Hinderer, Chris Reeve, Medford, those guys, right? A knife with, you don't even see a knife with S110V from them, but S90 you see sometimes from Medford. So S90 with titanium scales and a frame lock from Medford would be $600. Hinderer with 20 CV and a frame lock in titanium would be, what, $450, something like that? And a Chris Reeve we know is about the same. So I think $340 for a U.S.-made knife like this is actually really good. That's $100 less than competitors, and you're getting a cooler steel. So I actually think the price is fine. Yeah, I still wish it was like $299, but I'm going to go ahead and say this is a good price. So I would pick it up if I was you and you were looking to get one. And I really am kind of considering picking this up. I was possibly going to just see if they would let me keep this somehow, you know, send me an invoice or something. But I'll work that out if I make that decision. So let's get into it. Aesthetically, it's sexy. Absolutely just fantastic. I love Sinkovich, guys. His design language has caught me from the beginning. He was literally the first designer that caught my eye. I was really into the 0450 and the 0470, and I had a Kershaw Atmos for the longest time. That was like a $30 knife, maybe $20 knife. I forget. Very cheap knife. Maybe it's more like 30. I forget. Anyway, it's basically the same design. So the Atmos is basically a budget version of this, but it's a little bit smaller. So I was always intrigued by this design. And I obviously had one, so there you go. But I think it's sexy. I love the lines. Sinkovich just does it for me. He doesn't do sheep's foot blades really, but the way he does a drop point, it works for me, and it doesn't have a huge belly out to the tip, so it comes out straight to a tip, so you can get to that tip real nice and use it, which I really enjoy, right? I love this pivot. Absolutely beautiful pivot. The clip is take it or leave it. It's not my favorite, but it works really well. I gotta say, it works really well. I carried it right-handed just because I don't know. It seemed weird to put it over here on the inlay and then have this be blank. I don't know. So I just left it. And the other knife I had, I was carrying lefty, so this worked out. I like the PVD coated blade. I think it looks good. You get a nice little swedge up here. Yeah, the coating, you know, I barely cut anything, and it's already got some, you know, coloring on it. It's not like, you know, you see there, I can get it to wipe off or whatever, but it's why I don't love PVD. I just think it looks like paint. I prefer a stone wash over anything, honestly. Yeah, so I think the design is really nice aesthetically. Ergonomically, very comfortable in the hand. It just grips really well for me. I have a large glove size hand. I kind of just melt right into it. Now, there's no real choil. You can't like climb. You can try if you want, but I would just hold it like this. And my thumb lands past the jimping, but I can back it up like this if I want. It's always one of those things on these knives. It's like, just give me more jimping or get rid of it. I don't know. It just seems odd. But it feels really comfortable and locked in. Don't really feel the clip. Right-handed, same thing. So again, the clip is kind of, you know, hit or miss. But the way it's made, you don't feel it in the hand. So it's kind of nice, you know. So ergos are good for me. Cutting. So again, the cutting I think is fantastic. You're going to have that S110V. Obviously, I didn't use this enough to test that. So, you know, that's going to be your mileage will vary type thing. Or somebody wants to Rockwell test this or, you know, cut with it for an hour and a half and then sharpen it and cut with it again. Sure. If you want to take your time to do that, please do, and let everybody know in the comments how that went. But for me, I'm going to talk about the geometry and stuff like that. I really enjoy this blade. I cut some shipping labels out with it. It was easy to get to that tip. Zip, zip. You know, I went through 2 or 3 labels, no problem. I cut some paper with it, and it sliced right through. Very clean cuts. They seem to have gotten a pretty decent edge on this. I mean, ZT, if you go back and look at, you know, the old days when ZT was like, you know, one of the companies we actually talked about, they're literally dead right now. They had pretty thick behind the edge measurements, right? They didn't come down to very thin edges. And their heat treats were always suspect, you know. So I would hope that they've taken that into consideration here. But they definitely have with the thinness. It does not feel like uber thick or anything. I mean, it's probably still 20 thousandths behind the edge, but it's not 30. You know what I mean? They used to be so thick. I suck at measuring it. Otherwise, I would try. But just trust me, it does not feel super thick, especially when you're cutting. It feels like it slides right through cuts. It feels really good in my opinion. So I think the cutting is great on this knife. The carry as well. You would think that copper inlay would add a lot of weight, but it really doesn't. This thing probably weighs 4 ounces, you know, so maybe that's a little much for the, 3, we can check. See, I would venture to guess it's about 3 1/4 inches of blade. So, right there. Oops. Sorry. So, let's line it up. I guess it would be easier to do it like this, maybe? So we can get right up to it. I just don't want to touch any part of the blade with it. So right there, 3 1/2. So 3 1/2 inches of blade on this guy. And then your handle length is going to be roughly 4 1/2, 4 1/4. Shout out to KPL for providing this NAFS ruler. You can go over to knifepivotlube.com and use my code LeftyEDC over there at checkout for 10% off. So 3 1/2 inch blade, you know, I think that's a sweet spot. I like it. It's not a knife that feels big, so it doesn't really feel like 3 1/2. I thought it was more like 3 1/4, and it might be more like 3.3, something like that. Very manageable. I think it's great, and it carries phenomenal. This clip works great. Retention's great. It sits tucked into the back left pocket. Came out no problem. Went in no problem. Yeah, it carried like a dream. I really enjoyed it. Sounds. Sounds are good. The only sound I don't like is the closing right here. just kind of sounds a little bit janky when it disengages. You know, it's almost like you can hear the ball jumping on and off the blade or something. You know, I don't love that, but that's really the only sound I don't like. I'd give it a 6 out of 10 on sounds. I do like it overall. Action / fidget factor. So this is where I was really pleasantly surprised by this knife. Now I will say there does seem to be a little bit of stick. It's not bad, it just grabs a little bit, and I don't know if that's something that would wear in, but it's definitely grabbing a little bit. It could have something to do with the coatings. I don't know. It's not coated where it's grabbing though, but it could be up there. Tried cleaning everything off. I don't know, but it's not like bad. It's just grab. It's not stick, if that makes sense. It just takes a little, you know, it doesn't quite pop or anything. It just drags off a little bit. So I'm guessing it would wear in. The detent. I would prefer it to be slightly stronger, but it's still really good. So one thing you really couldn't say about ZT, and again, there's exceptions. I've had ones that weren't great. But ZT kind of invented the modern good detent. You know, I think that's part of what makes me a real stickler for detents is I've handled a lot of ZTs. I owned ZTs early on, so I knew what a good, snappy detent felt like, right? Even the Kershaw Atmos was snappy. And it, you know, it deployed when you broke the detent, shot out and deployed, you know. So a $30 knife could do that. It always bugged me when a $200 one couldn't, right? Yeah, it's definitely sticking. It's weird. But the detent on this is good. It's definitely in the good category. I wouldn't say it's great. I think they could have dialed it up just a touch, but I think they did it the way they did so you could push button it real easy. All right. Let me let that sit a second. Yeah, I think they did it so that you could push button it. Because the way they did the jimping here, you see how it's here instead of like, it doesn't have a flat that you grab on top of like this, right? Like for example, my Grimsmo Rask, you have a flat portion, like a plateau, and then there's jimping there. So they want you to pull down on this, right? They're expecting you to pull down. They're not really expecting you to go and push it in. Like a push button, right? You sort of can do it, but it's meant to be light switched. This knife, on the other hand, the way they have the jimping is more for a push. So they can't have a super strong detent because if you have too strong a detent, you can't do the push, right? Now on this knife, you can still grab and pull down and light switch, but the most comfortable thing to do is just grab the flipper tab and let it do the work, right? And you end up doing a push button. And by the way, that lock stick seems to be gone now. So I think we're good. But it's meant to do that as opposed to that, if that makes any sense to you guys. So the detent is actually dialed really well for that. There is no detent lash. Like, yeah, you can see me moving the blade, but I'm moving the blade. Like, it's not loosey-goosey in there. There's no rattle, nothing like that. You know, I can play with it a little bit while it's closed, but that's not detent lash. That's just, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, but it works fantastic. And then on the close, from the unboxing, it just has gotten better and better. I mean, look at it swing down, and it's just gliding shut. The detent ball wore a path in beautifully. The centering is pretty close to dead nuts. I would check to see. Yeah, I mean, absolutely the tiniest bit. I mean, I wouldn't even call it play. I'm really wrenching on it. So it's basically just broken in, really buttery smooth. I haven't touched anything in terms of adjustments here. I've just flipped the shit out of it. It's not guillotining. It'll go to your nail like that, and then you just give it one little shake, and she's going to swing down. Absolutely fantastic fidget factor, guys. So overall, for an American-made knife, for $340, I think this is one of the best offerings that I've seen in a long time. You guys, if you watch the channel, you'll know I'm not a Hinderer guy. I'm not really a Medford guy. I do like the Slim Midi, but that's about it. And I haven't kept one. I'm not a Chris Reeve guy. I'm not really a Microtech guy. I'm not really, so I'm not a big Koenig guy because, the Arius just doesn't work well left-handed. So this is one of my favorite American-made knives that I have handled in so long. And it feels good, It feels good. Like, it makes me hopeful for ZT. Like, I really have always looked up to this company. I've always wanted them to keep coming out with good shit. Like, this is good shit right here. Keep pushing with this stuff, right? Maybe give us a couple of knives where we can flick them. Like, imagine a ZT with their perfect detents and you could flick it. Oh my God. Like, they have so much potential, and it just drives me nuts to have watched them the last 3 years now, maybe, just shit the bed over and over and over. I mean, they hit it with the 301, I think it was. A lot of people like the 301. It was too massive for me, but I get it. That was kind of their thing, so it makes sense. But this is the first knife. It's not even a new knife either, but it's the first knife since that 301 that has been good. And this knife is phenomenal, guys. So I highly recommend this. If you're one of those people who's always yelling at your screen, watching the channel, but it's Chinese, but it's overseas. Oh, what about the American knives? Here you go. Go buy it. $340. You could buy it at Blade Ops. I'm sure other places have it. If you don't want to, you don't have to use the link. I'm just saying, they have it. This thing is incredible. So welcome back, ZT. Welcome back to the fold. And please don't walk right back out the door. Like, embrace it. Move forward. Do something else cool. Sure, if you want to rehash a couple other models and do different things again, fine, do it. But I think you guys could. There's a place for you still. There's plenty of people like me who are sick of the Hinderer, Medford, Chris Reeve shit, and would love to see you come back into the fold. Seriously. So that's my take, guys, on the S110V 047. It almost has a mirror edge, too. From ZT. Absolutely fantastic. Big shout out to Blade Ops for letting me check this guy out. I'll get it back your way, or I'll ask you if I can buy it, because I'm really tempted. I really like this, and I want to have some American-made knives, I really only have, I think I have two. I think I have two. I think I have the Rosie and the FSD. I think those are my only American-made knives. It's so sad, but it's not because I don't want to, That's what's frustrating. I don't know. I love you guys. No, I have a Hogue. I have a Hogue Ritter RSK too. Okay, 3 knives. Jeez. I love you guys. I really do. I truly appreciate all of your support. Look at that blade shape too. Doesn't it have a sheep's foot look to it, sorta? That's what always drew me in with Sinkovich, I think. It kind of has that sheep's footy look, but it doesn't have that normal Russian, Polish, Eastern European look that a lot of Shiros, and I don't know, there's just something about it. But, yeah. I love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. And I will catch you later.